What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. I'm joined today in studio by my friend Ryan King. He is the current CFO at Threadwallets. I'm sure many of you listeners out there have seen Threadwallets. Maybe you own a Threadwallet. You see it in your local Targets nowadays, blowing up online. It was like the revolutionary thing a few years ago to like own a Threadwallet and get rid of like your old clanky super fat wallet. I got my guy Ryan here. We're going to dive into the founding story of Threadwallets, kind of where the company's been. You guys have been around for about 9 years now, is that right?
So I've been there full time for almost 8. And then it was 2015,
Okay.
January. So we just hit 11 years.
11 years now, yeah.
Yeah, so just past 11 years. But funny, if I can already, I'm already story time with Ryan. Here we go. But when you said getting rid of like your bulky wallet, is my sister and brother-in-law started the company. They had this idea for this like minimalist wallet, and I just didn't get it right off the bat.
Were you a bulky wallet guy?
Totally. And the story is I was on my mission in the Czech Republic, and I was like, I don't get this like minimalist wallet idea. And then they were like, no, you need to switch over. And I did. And I realized that I had like Cafe Rio punch cards. Like that's back before they had the app, right? And those were in my pocket for 2 years in the Czech Republic. And so it was just funny that they were like, yeah, this is exactly why you need to switch from the bulky wallet, because you have stuff that you don't need. And I was like, no, everything in here is like,
it's pristine. I need it. Yeah.
I need it. And then it was like, wait, I pulled out like 3 half-used Cafe Rio punch cards, and I carried them for 2 years.
And then after that, you were sold.
In the Czech Republic. So then after that, I seriously was like, okay, I get it. Like everyone can slim down.
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, in today's episode, we're going to be asking Ryan all about those early days of Thread, and just kind of where, as a brand, you've been going, especially in the AI age. Consumer is such an interesting topic right now. Consumer products and goods. So we'll be diving into the weeds. So with that being said, let's jump into today's episode. So I guess first, let's talk real quick about the Czech Republic. So right before we hit record, for everyone listening, I was asking Ryan his kind of upbringing, where he grew up. He grew up here in the state of Utah, where we're recording today's episode. And you told me you've kind of only lived in a couple other places, the Czech Republic for an LDS mission, and then you said an internship out in North Carolina. Yeah. What was that experience like, and how do you think that helped kind of get you to become the CFO of Thread and get you prepared for building such an amazing brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with the Czech Republic specifically this might sound like very, not immature, but just very basic, but like growing up in Provo my whole life, I feel like can kind of just have like one worldview, right? It's Happy Valley. It's awesome. I love Provo. I still live there, but it's like, I had a fairly narrow-minded worldview of just how things work. But then you go to the Czech Republic and I realized, oh, wow, people live differently and have different belief systems than I do, had different upbringings. I mean, so many people there affected by communism and World War II and Russia, basically them being a satellite state of the Soviet Union for decades, is that just changes people's worldviews. So one of the biggest things that I think the Czech Republic did for me, outside of strengthening me from a spiritual sense, was just helping me see that other people have different opinions, viewpoints, and worldviews than me. Even so much as it sounds silly, but like as an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, like I grew up in Provo, like avid BYU fan. And then I go on the mission, and half my companions were avid Ute fans. And like, I was like, wait, they're good people. Like I thought all these people sucked, And so it's like even dumb little things like that, like kind of expanded how I view the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I served my LDS mission in Brazil and Texas. I had a little mixture of the two. And I didn't grow up in Utah. It's definitely a different culture living here for the past couple of years compared to where I grew up. But it's just so many life philosophies that I learned down in Brazil, which if you look back at younger Brandon when I was, 14, 15, kind of when you start getting your own viewpoints of the world and how you kind of want to live your life and prepare it. I don't think I would have understood that at the time until I went and left to live in Brazil, what a difference of a culture makes inside of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Couldn't agree more.
It's so incredible. You get out of like I guess you had the Utah/American. I grew up in Southern California, but still that American vibe, and just going and seeing a different country, a different perspective of the world was pretty unique. I feel like every single day, there's not a day that goes by, I should say, that I don't think about my time of living in Brazil and like what the people taught me and their culture and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I just throughout the day, I think of some story or person I met or just something from the Czech Republic.
I guess as a culture, what were the Czechs like? I could guess pretty stern, but
yeah, no, I joke. I don't know what I can say on this podcast.
Say it
but,
all.
Like I tell this story or a few stories that like illustrate Czechs like perfectly. Is they're very blunt, and so like I think too, communism maybe made them a little, closed off to outsiders, and rightfully so. Like I think if you go in with just this like American happy-go-lucky attitude of friendly to everyone, there's maybe a little skepticism of outsiders.
Skepticism in the sense of like they don't trust you. They think it's not authentic.
Well, because you have to think like back to communism. When you're a Czech, your neighbors literally could be agents for, in essence, the KGB, like the equivalent, right? Of you say something bad about the government, your neighbor who's been your friend for years actually might be a spy and is going to tell the government. Or, religion was banned. Neighbor finds out that you're actually religious, you could get in trouble or lose your job. And so they're very just, I think, skeptical of, trusting outsiders. But once you do have their trust, there's no better friend than a Czech.
Interesting.
But with that is they're also just remarkably blunt. Like I kid you not, like I went back a year after my mission and I'd gained like 10 pounds. And I've lost some since, which is great. But like I go back and friends, like they are good friends, will literally just be like, man, wow, like you've gained weight.
They just
like,
tell you how it is.
Say that. And I remember literally the last week of my mission, I was wanting to say bye to this couple, and the wife, they were probably in their like late 60s, early 70s, just sweet people. And I say, hey, brother so-and-so, where's sister so-and-so? And he just answers in the church building, like dead serious, and just goes, she has diarrhea like you wouldn't believe. Like she's at home. I've never seen diarrhea like this. Like she couldn't make it today because she's just has such bad diarrhea. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like church is about to start. You're just like sharing that. Like most people here would be like, oh, she's sick. And then like other Czech families are like, oh my gosh, yeah, like my husband had that last week. Like, it must be going around. Like it's just awful. Like, and so it's just, that's kind of the open, very blunt culture.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Just watching sports and stuff, I feel like that's the persona that Czechs give off. But well, that's super awesome. How do you think that experience personally shaped you to get ready to be one of the foundational leaders over at Thread?
I think I would say one, kind of back to this just like worldview, is applying that to who I work with at Thread. Of they have different worldviews than I do. They have different lived experiences. And so being able to work with different people who have different viewpoints of business, that's not a bad thing. You don't want everyone to share the same opinion. And realizing that, yeah, hey, this person has worked completely different background than me from a work perspective. That's okay. And you learn to work with different personalities. I mean, I'm a finance guy. I'm very analytical, but a lot of our team are creatives, right? Marketing people and, brand folks at Thread. They do things on the computer with Adobe and whatever they're working with. I could never do. But then when I do something in Excel, they're just like giggling because they're like, how did you do that? And just having different experiences in how they view the world, and someone who has a degree in advertising or design or graphic design, whatever, doesn't mean their opinion's any less valid than mine as a finance major.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. It's interesting when that's what I love about companies, especially in the early startup stage, is you're going in trying to build like this brand identity, what kind of culture you want to have as a company. And it's really difficult because you have people from all different walks and shapes of life coming together from different backgrounds, both in like spiritual beliefs, family beliefs, education, them as a person, what makes them them. Everyone's coming in trying to mold that into what your company is, and it's really really difficult sometimes to merge those together. So what would you say has been like Thread's secret sauce to kind of not necessarily embrace everyone's differences in terms of like you're the finance guy, you're the marketing guy, you're the graphic designer, but kind of merge those all together under the Thread ecosystem?
Yeah, I was actually talking with our CEO yesterday. Is I think the biggest thing, and when Thread has been at its best, it's when there's trust and not second guessing that person because they have a different background than me, but the trust aspect of, hey, they want what's best for Thread, and then also just letting people do things. Like, just because I'm the CFO doesn't mean I can't have a good marketing idea, or because our head of brand has an idea of a way that can affect the finance department, that doesn't mean it's invalid. And so I think like working together in this, it's a balance because you need to have lanes, but also when there's almost no lanes and the lane is just help Thread be the best it can be, that's been when those different personalities work best together.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson, we're still in our infancy as a startup ourselves, but I think one of the biggest lessons that I've been learning recently is if you try and adapt the company around what Ryan needs in this moment and what Susie Sue needs in that moment and Joey Joe needs in that moment, it's very difficult. Like obviously you want to go and match people and get to know them on a personal level and kind of see what makes them tick and what they enjoy, what they dislike. And you need that on a personal level. But then I found that it's very difficult sometimes to go and everyone almost needs to embrace the branding of the company and kind of mold into that culture. And that's where I think the most adequate work gets done. You still bring your personality and your perspective into it, but your end goal is what are we doing better to make Thread or Interval or whatever company you're at? What are we doing to make that the best culture, and how can I contribute to that?
Absolutely, yeah. What can you do for Thread? Ask not what Thread can do for you,
but what you could do for Thread. I love it. I love it.
Exactly.
So let's jump back a little bit for any of the listeners. I would be shocked if somebody's listening to this and hasn't heard of Thread at this point through some online blast on social media article. I mean, you guys have been around the block for a while. Amazing brand presence. For anyone who hasn't, though, let's jump back to some of the early days. Give us the founding story of Thread.
Yeah, so it starts in 2014, actually. My sister and brother-in-law started the company, but my brother-in-law had this idea. He was actually in a class. I can't remember the name of the class, but it was like start a business or something. The semester you needed to come up with a business idea. And he had seen the success of Stance Socks. There was another company here in Utah called Beloved Shirts that was just printing. They were printing cool designs on things that are typically boring. So that was kind of the idea. I think before that, what happened is Colby that's my brother-in-law, he had lost his wallet surfing. They were out at BYU, Hawaii, and he went and stole a broccoli rubber band, one of those thick bands from the grocery store.
Go around like the crown head of the broccoli. Yeah.
And so he had just put that around his remaining cards. And then he was in this class and he was like, wait, I could make a cool, colorful rubber band, basically. So our first product was what I jokingly say, and people at the company laugh because I've probably said it 8 million times to people who haven't heard of Thread, is I say our main original product is a glorified rubber band. And they just know the line glorified rubber band is coming. And that's what it was. And then they realized you could print on elastic, just white elastic, fun, cool, expressive design. And then it took off from there. So it was Mackenzie and Colby selling at farmers markets to start. And Colby tells this story that he was they were first married and in their apartment, and they were selling stuff. And it was one every 3 or 4 days, he'd send one package to the post office. And then the next week it was, one every 2 days. Then it was one a day, and then it was two a day. And then by the end of the semester, he was taking like a box every day into the post office to mail out these wallets.
That's incredible. I guess two questions on that. Number one is, what was the actual product? I'm not hearing any stories right now of them like ordering in bulk from China or something. And then number two, where were they getting traction? How did it go from, one a week to multiple a day?
So I actually am a little hazy on that because I was in the Czech Republic on my LDS mission. I think they started and somehow bought the original ones from, because they didn't make the original like first batch by hand, but they somehow had, I can't remember how it was, something that was like a one-off but they couldn't order again. I don't know, actually. I need to go back to to them and ask how they got that first batch. But because when I got back from my mission, we had moved production in-house to where I was making them in my parents' garage.
So you were out there physically sewing.
So starting in 2015, that story comes from 2014. But then I think there was something with the quality, maybe. I don't know. I should know that better. But when I got back in 2015, they had were reworking the website, and we started making them by hand. So yeah, there wasn't like buying our first order of 1,000 from China or something. It was literally, I tell this story because I remember it vividly. Like, we mastered just-in-time inventory because I'd get up on a Monday and Colby would go, we've got to make 20 of these wallets today because we got a lot of orders for them over the weekend and we have 5 left. And so that was my Monday, was making that one design. And then it was like, we need to ship those out either end of day today or Tuesday. And so then we would make those wallets and fill up with these little sleeves, these cardboard sleeves in their spare bedroom at a little 2-bedroom house. And we would just see what was running low. Like you talk about inventory management too. It was like
the eyeball test.
It was literally the eyeball test of like, well, that one's a little low. Like we should fill up those 4 little cardboard.
And are we talking like, 20 different designs at the time?
Yeah, we maybe had 10, 15, 20 different designs, and it was just the elastic wallet.
Okay.
And then it was also like we couldn't all go on vacation at the same time because then no one could fulfill orders.
So here you are as a family trying to, family reunion coming up. Well, one of us has to stay back.
Or then it was like we trained a cousin who could come over in a pinch and print off labels and fulfill orders and ship them out. And so that was the early days. And again, I want to be clear, like I wasn't one of the co-founders, but they started in 2014 and then I got back in like April of 2015. So Thread's been my only job since I've done internships, but Thread's really been my only job since I got back.
It's incredible.
I studied finance and they were growing like crazy. And they were like, look, we're not finance people. Do you want to come be a partner in the business and run the finances?
It's incredible. So walk me through where in the early days you were finding customers. How did you go from the, 1 wallet a day to 20 wallets?
We were lucky, and this is, I think, every business, and quite honestly, Thread, we're wanting to find what's the next, catalyst to just our next level of growth, doubling, tripling, whatever. But early on, we were early on Instagram. And it's kind of crazy now to think about it, like how different the industry was, because we worked with a lot of influencers back then, where influencers now, it's like they're so dialed with their business that it's like, a story post is $5,000. A multi-image post on my feed is X amount, whatever. But in the early days, people were just blown away that they could get free product from brands by posting about it. And so there were people we worked with who had tens of thousands of followers, if not hundreds in some instances, who all they cared about was getting free product, and then they post about it for free. because we just gave them wallets. And so early days, it was a lot of that, was just Mackenzie and Colby had made a lot of connection while in Hawaii of these surfing,
like the perfect persona for a Thread wallet.
Perfect persona for a Thread wallet, beach vibes, that, hey, yeah, send me stuff and I'll post them on my trip to New Zealand, or I live in Hawaii on the North Shore. Like, I'm at the beach every day. Like, I'll do a photo shoot for you. So that was how we found customers in the early days.
That's awesome. I want to jump back here for a second. We'll dive into like how AI is optimizing consumer products and kind of the consumer product landscape. But while we're thinking early days, is there anything you would look at right now, having been in the role for 8 or so years now, and if you could look back and say, if I could tell like the early Thread team these lessons, what would they be?
That's a good question. I will take this a little different direction to start and then answer, like, what would I tell the team as advice? But I think one of the big things early on is if we could have figured out production to be able to do just en masse, that could have propelled us to a lot quicker growth, even just because we were literally making them by hand. And one last story on that I'll share that I just find funny is early on, we started having people reach out saying, hey, can you do custom wallets for my business? And Maverick, the gas station chain here in Utah.
Which, real quick, for anyone outside of Utah, yes, when you say Maverick is the gas station here in Utah.
Yeah, it's like the gas station here in Utah. And they reached out and were like, can you do like 4,000 wallets for us? And we were like, yes, of course. Yes. Like, that's revenue, but like, we'll have to figure out ways. And so we made them by hand. And like, we had a seamstress who would drop off, a few hundred a week or something like that, because it was in addition to our normal stuff. And we got like 4,000 wallets done, and I didn't know what to do with them. And so like, this just shows how like young we were, where I was like, because we didn't have a warehouse, like we had the spare bedroom and these little cardboard sleeves of 20 wallets. And then we have just 4,000 wallets like sitting in a box.
Which is like the little Maverick logo?
Yeah, they were red. They had the Maverick logo. And I was like, well, how do I get these to Maverick? Because we only had little sleeves to put 1 or 2 wallets in. And so I went to Walmart. I remember going to Walmart and getting just like plastic bins, filling like 4 or 5 of those up with the wallet, and then driving to Maverick up in Salt Lake to their HQ. And I called the lady we were working with, and I was just like, hey, I'm here with the wallets. And she was like, what do you mean? Like, is this like USPS or FedEx or like
no,
what? And
I showed
was
up.
Like, no, I'm here with the wallets. And she was like, let me come down. She literally was like so confused. She's like, let me come down and like get them. And I just like opened the trunk of my car, and I just have plastic bins full of wallets. And she's like, you want me to keep these? And I was like, well, I wasn't going to use them. Like, keep the bins. She was just so confused. But like, if we could have figured out how to do that quicker and even just do our normal production, we eventually moved over to Asia. I would say that would be the piece of advice as I would give would be move production to, factories that can handle scale a lot quicker.
Yeah, if you do it too quick, though, you don't get those great stories.
I know,
these Maverick
it's true.
stories
You
in the
don't get
early
those
days.
stories. And I would say broadly, is advice that I would give to the team is, and this one popped into my head, is there's a balance between being optimistic and being realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes early on, we thought we were invincible, to be completely honest, because it was just growth was up and to the right every year, every day, every month. It was like, hey, we just beat last month's numbers. Hey, we just beat them again. We just beat them again. And over the years, doing this now 8 years full time, that's not always the case. So I think I would tell the early Thread team of just like, hey, just know that there are good times and bad times, and prep for the slower times, prep for the bad news, prep for the good news. The getting manufacturing, in bulk would be the good news side of things, but also just be careful how you spend money. It's not always sunshine and rainbows every day. Probably the biggest piece of advice I'd give.
I love it. I want to jump back. Stance. You mentioned that was kind of the early vibes. That's a product. I'm wearing their socks right now.
Me too.
Yeah, incredible product. I've met their founding team, been out to their HQ in Southern California. Their vibes as a company are kind of what, like, I feel like a consumer product wants to strive for. You got athletes rocking your socks. I don't even remember how many years they've been around now. It's been quite some time, but they're still like the hip product. I'm a big Dodger fan. When I see my boys in blue wearing their socks out in spring training right now, it fires me up. It makes me want to stay around as a customer as well. What was the early days of trying to replicate that for Thread, but still have your own personal identity?
Yeah, and Colby would be a great one to talk to about this too. But what's interesting is, when he lost his wallet, what happened is Stance was just becoming the cool brand, right? And you kind of got to remember, Colby actually had a business idea originally, even before Thread was a sock company. And so he played soccer collegiately. He was like, we need good socks for college athletes. I think I could improve the sock. But then he lost his wallet. And when he went to go get a new one, he went on Amazon, I think. And it was just boring. It was literally 50 Shades of Gray, but literally for wallets. It was just boring. This is a dark gray leather wallet. This is a brown leather. This is a lighter brown leather. There was no expression. And so he knew wait, Stance kind of took socks, which were either white, gray, or black, and turned them into something fun. So that is what he wanted to do with wallets. And it's kind of how that came about.
And then specifically on the Stance side, their company culture was that hip, good vibes, spirit. And I would actually love you to dive into the warehouse and the office you guys have built in Provo and kind of how you replicate some of those vibes. For reference, as somebody who's gone to your guys' office and kind of seen the culture, it's natural light flowing through. You got the storefront in the very front facing of Center Street in Provo, and then in the back you got the offices. You have a sauna studio being built out down below. You have a half pipe in the back for people to go skating. Walk me through that company culture and how you guys wanted to set that up from day one and kind of how you grew into it as well.
Yeah, I think part of it too is Colby and Mackenzie were really good at when they grew to a certain point of hiring people to help with the journey. And one of those, his name's Trevor. He's one of my good buddies and has been with the company just as long as I have. But he's been over the brand and over marketing. And I think hiring someone who cares and is good in that role can really help with the culture. Because I take our HQ down in Provo, which we affectionately call the Thread Quarters, which I think is a pretty good name.
I like that, yeah.
But we had an interior designer for a minute, and we realized that they were just expensive, but also wait, we are the brand. We know what we want. So Colby and Trevor just took over the design process and said, we're going to handle making this Thread. And so, yeah, it's fun. It's expressive. It's a cool space. And when people come in, they're like, wow, this represents the brand so well. And that's perfect. That's what we want. But I think that you have to do that in daily stuff at your business too. You mentioned that we have a tenant going into the basement that's a sauna, yoga, massage, wellness studio. And we yesterday at 10 a.m. had a Thread sauna session for anyone who wanted to join from Thread. And it's I think in some people's minds that might be counterintuitive of wait, you should be working. How's that bringing value to the company? And I'm well, chatting as a team in the sauna, that's making people stoked and hey, this is a rad place to work, and gives them more energy to then work the rest of the day to get things done. And so it's like, you got to do it in like the little day-to-day stuff too. And I try to do it in any interaction I have um, with people I interact with, like one little thing that I like doing. And, it hasn't led to anything like noticeable of like difference, but a lot of times when I'm at fast casual restaurants, I think I can come across as like borderline a creep because I'm like looking like, oh, what are they paying with? Like they whip out their wallet and I'm like, is that a Thread? And it's like, no, I promise I'm not trying to steal your wallet. But if I see someone like pull out a Thread wallet, I literally will run up and pay for their lunch or their dinner. And it's like those little things reinforce culture of just like, that's a fun thing to do. Like me paying for someone's $12 Chick-fil-A, like that's not.
Oh, they just became a lifetime customer.
That's the hope, right? But also just like, that's just what Thread is. Like we want to be fun, connected with our customer. Our tagline for the company is do what connects you. And well, we can connect with our customer by chatting with them. What do you like about the product? Oh, and can I buy you dinner?
That's incredible. I love it. I love it. Walk me through. I like what you're saying there, where it's a mixture of like, there's the moments of grinding and, especially if you look at the early days, you had the moments where you had to go and hire your cousins to go and help run fulfillment, and you're driving the product up to Maverick yourself. There's the grind periods, but have those kind of diminished over time as you guys have grown as a brand, as a company? Or how does that fit into that also culture of like, hey, we want to go spend an hour of our time to just go get to know employees and make sure they feel like they're enjoying the work environment that we are giving them?
Yeah. I mean, doing this as long as I have, I actually firmly believe that regardless of what stage you are in your business, it's the same amount of hard. It's just different types of hard. And I could be wrong on that. Again, anything I say, it's just my opinion and my lived experience. But yeah, there are things that were like, let's take back to the story of like making enough wallets to fulfill orders for that day. Is in the moment that was crazy stressful because, oh my gosh, we need to get these customers' orders out and we don't have the wallets. That was a problem and made me stress. But we got through it. Now a stress might be, hey, we ordered a few thousand too many units of this product because it didn't sell as well. So I don't have the stress of having to wake up and make a wallet, but now I have the stress of, as the CFO, if a wallet's just sitting on a pallet in a warehouse, that's just cash sitting doing nothing. So now we've got to figure out a way how to move that product that didn't sell. And so it's like throughout the whole business, like it's been, the stress I don't think has gone down. It's just different types of stress. And I say my job now, like, is completely different than it was 8 years ago. But because sometimes people will ask, wow, you've been doing it for so long. Like, are you getting sick of it? And it's like, in some ways, I mean, I'd love to sell the business at some point or, be making so much money that it's like, can kind of relax a little bit. But it's like, no, like the job the last year has been completely different than it was 3 years ago. And as your team grows, you have more interaction with people and you've got to improve and hone your interpersonal skills, because instead of just working with my sister and brother-in-law where it's just blunt all the time of like, no, that's stupid. Like, because you have that familial connection, it's now, oh, I'm working with someone who has twice the amount of experience that I have, who worked at a different company before. You've got to just learn how to work with people differently. So it's always a learning experience. I wouldn't say that like one's better or worse, but it's just throughout the whole time, it's learning.
It's constantly changing.
It's constantly changing. It's constant stress. It's constant fun. It's constant frustration. Welcome to the life of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And that's what I love about companies that are kept really small too, because I feel like there's buy-in from the team and people feel some of that urgency in the times where there needs to be urgency. And then also those fun experiences of, hey, let's go hit a sauna session as a company or things like that. It's a good mix.
Exactly.
It's a very good mix. I want to jump in. I'm curious your perspective. You kind of, Thread as in general hit like the peak opportune time to go and build a consumer brand. It feels like looking back a few years in the past, it was the perfect time to go out and do it. nowadays it seems like consumer is very, very hard to nail. And it's like, I look at it also from like the investing standpoint. Right now, venture capital and private equity are very, very difficult to go in. If you have a consumer product, it's very difficult to go in and say, hey, Mr. VC fund, come and, work with our company, back us. What is your perspective on building a consumer brand nowadays? What are some of the reasons why you would say, I still think it's an absolute slam dunk? And then some of the ones where you'd be like, this is where I would have some trepidation.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think years ago, honestly, it was much easier to build a consumer brand. And being candid, like we had a window, I think, where it's like, hey, we could have sold and probably sold for a decent amount of money a few years ago because like consumer was really hot.
It's booming.
It was booming, yeah. But it's become harder and one of the main reasons for that is ad costs have just skyrocketed. Is like it used to be that it was almost like a money machine. Back to like our inhibitor for growth years ago was we just couldn't make enough wallets to meet the demand. Because with running Facebook ads and Instagram ads, it was like we could acquire customers for next to nothing. But then that just changed because so many entrants came in and flooded the market. COVID, there's a lot of people who were laid off who then start their own business. They're like, I can make it. I'll learn how to run Facebook ads myself. They're flooding the market, just inflates the price to acquire customers. And so nowadays, like you have to just be much more dialed and efficient and know what you're doing to be successful. I think you also need to be, most companies now don't talk about like, I try not even to say it like we're not a direct consumer customer or just like we don't sell just through our website. It's got to be, everyone's talking about omni-channel. You need to be diversified. You have a wholesale presence. You do custom corporate gifting. You do your own retail stores, Amazon. You've got to just diversify your sales channels, which has made it hard. And I mean, the joys of an e-commerce, or now as I just said it, of a consumer brand, I think is like, it's very easy to feel and see the successes at a small scale. Like if you keep it really small and like Colby and Mackenzie did, we make 100 wallets or whatever, you then can see like, oh, we made those and then sold them for this. We were profitable this month. You can see that like on a small scale. And then it's like, oh, well, we can double that. Whereas with tech or other companies, it might be like a longer runway to get profitable. And, do you see the results where you're building for months before you see a product actually out into the market? But with consumer brands, that's the joy, is that, and you can see it out in the wild. Like people will text me fairly regularly and will be like, hey, I'm in XYZ town in Florida and I just saw your wallets. And I'm like, I love that. Or they'll be like, hey, I was on campus in Tennessee going to a game and I saw your wallets in the campus store.
I got to pull mine up right now. Anyone who's watching the episode, I texted you back on September 3rd. So this is 6 or so months ago. And I said Thread rep in Banff, Canada. And I was just in some random little gift shop outside of Banff. And there's your wallets right there.
And so that, like, I am not just saying this. I never get sick of seeing our stuff in the wild. Like me and my finance team went to lunch on Monday to just have a brainstorming session of what's going well, what can we improve. And I see someone with one of our big bags walking on to campus by BYU. We went to lunch over there and we all were like, oh my gosh, look at that. Like the utility toe. Oh my gosh, that's so sick. And it's like, I never get sick of that. And that's a cool thing about consumer products.
Yeah, you get to see them out in the wild, see people actually using the product. It's pretty incredible.
Exactly.
What hesitancies, if somebody out there who's listening to this episode goes, I want to jump into consumer right now, what are the big hesitancies besides, the multi-channel? You got to be kind of a master of, e-commerce, online, malls, storefronts, what would you warn them against?
The biggest thing that I would say is, how are you going to acquire customers? Like that is the biggest question mark. Because I was actually talking to an investment banker last week and he was like, the brands that are winning right now are either brands that sell high enough price products in consumer brands that they just have money to spend to acquire customers.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying like $300 plus average order value. Like that's what's winning. Or brands that are like extremely inexpensive that can kind of be the inflation buster, because that's what is on so many people's minds, that it's like you've got to be inexpensive enough that people see it as a total impulse purchase, or you are expensive enough that you can just eat the higher ad costs. Because in the 8 years I've been here full time, and even from back to when I was working part time before that, ad costs just don't get cheaper. Like it's not something that, oh yeah, it's down 20% over 2 years ago. Like even gas prices they're mostly up, but it's like
they have some dips
and stuff, or maybe some big dips and then up. But it's like ad costs seem to just be up, up, up. And so the hesitancy would just be, how are you going to acquire customers and market and get a customer base for not a lot of money? Or unless you have some, investor, you have such a good idea that they're willing to, throw you a fundraising round to say, hey, we're going to just slog it through ad costs or whatever. But how are you going to differentiate yourself to advertise?
I always find that one a little challenging too. Not in the sense that it doesn't work. I mean, that was our model, is get some investors so we can get this thing up and off the ground. Obviously, a little bit different in tech, but what I always warn people is, just because you got the investor money doesn't mean your product has product market fit. It doesn't mean it's necessarily validated. You can go and put on your best presentation and get somebody to write you a check, but you still need to make sure that you're actually building something that people want.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it is important. I like that. Word of mouth is the best marketing still. And it's like, it's awesome if you say you start a consumer brand and you order 100 units, or you make them by hand or whatever, and then you get validation and feedback, and then people buy from there, and then you can kind of slow roll it. We talk a lot about crawl, walk, run at Thread, because that's kind of, validate, optimize, scale. It's another one we use, where it's like there's no shame in starting small, especially I think in consumer products. But those are the challenges. Even
Definitely.
if you do get the money and then say, I'm going to spend millions on Facebook ads, because you have it from an investor, doesn't mean people are going to buy your product.
Exactly. Walk me through real quick, with this new age that we're living in, how have you personally been using AI to kind of optimize some of your workflows in your job?
Yeah, so it's fairly common that CFOs also oversee legal. Once you're big enough and you have internal counsel, or whatever, you have a lawyer on staff, or just more of a legal presence, you might have someone who's over that. But most startups, from what I've read and just seen from personal experiences, you don't have like a chief legal officer or something as a small company. I've used AI a lot, and I know it's cliche, or a lot of people say this, but I've heard it firsthand from lawyers who are like, yeah, like our business is slowed down because people just use ChatGPT to read a contract to start. And not saying that that's the final read, but like, because we still have lawyers that we use. And I was emailing one of them on Monday about some issues and things that we're working on. But I would say like contract review has made my job so much easier and saved Thread a ton of money.
Interesting.
And that's, again, not saying that that is the end all and you just have, AI read your contracts and then do that. But it's like, I either read them sometimes, and I'm not a lawyer, but like I knew what we were looking for. I'd worked with our lawyers for years, so I knew what the red flags were. And so I could read something and instantly be like, yeah, we need to change this. Go talk to the mall that we're signing a lease for or whatever, and get them to change X, Y, and Z. Now it's like, upload, what are the red flags for Thread? Boom, back. It's done in 10 seconds. Or you save that first review from the legal team, which, lawyers, hundreds of dollars an hour to do that. We also use AI quite a lot with just having a data warehouse there that has all of our historical data. So you can just query, hey, what were sales of this product over the past 5 years and what were the trends?
And any products in specific you've been using to go and do these?
I mean, I use ChatGPT for the legal stuff, but Baystash is what we use for um, like analytics of historical data.
Okay. And then have you, as the CFO, have you dove into any of the fun products that, it's AI living in Google Sheets or Excel or any of the financial models that you've been playing around with?
When it comes to financial models, to be honest, I could do more there. Like I'm not someone who's hesitant to use them, but we've just developed some pretty good models, honestly, before AI really was a thing. That
kind of got comfortable.
You just got comfortable and they work. And so it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like day to day, like, things that lay onto Google Sheets or whatever and Excel, like haven't used those a ton.
Gotcha. Well, walk me through as we're kind of getting close to ending today's episode. One interesting thing that I wanted to ask you, you guys went from, Thread wallets, where your only product you're selling in were cool, unique design wallets, sometimes some custom wallets. And now you guys have rolled across malls, online, your personal storefront, Amazon, you're in multi places. You just opened, I believe, in 1,000 different targets across the US. Yes. Is that right? And it's not Thread wallets anymore. It's Thread bags, wallets, lanyards, keychain, How did you go from the one product brand that people said, hey, I'm going to go get a Thread wallet to, hey, I'm going to go get a Thread wallet plus a bag plus a lanyard or, whatever?
Yeah. So a lot of it has been just dictated by the customer. And what I mean by that is, like, early on, it was just the wallets. And I could tell the story going on and how it snowballs, but used to be just the elastic wallet. But early on, my sister said, hey, we need to put a key ring on this so people can attach it to their keys or a lanyard. And it was like, okay. But then we saw people putting our wallet around a random lanyard that they get at a trade show or a convention or something. And so then it was like, well, why don't we just make the lanyard like a high quality lanyard that matches the wallet, or at least a complementary color. So then we did that. And then we saw people shoving in this elastic band, as I say, our glorified rubber band. They were shoving their lip balm into one of the pockets. It was like, well, what if we shrunk down the lip or the wallet to fit a lip balm holder, or a lip balm to be a lip balm holder? And then we saw people shoving the wallet, lanyard, lip balm holder into like crossbody bags or little like slings. So let's make a sling that they can put it in. And so another thing we say is that we want to be the go-to brand for all things carry. So how you can kind of carry your stuff. So you go to school one day where we have we call it our utility tote. I think it's one of our best products. That's what I saw some girl walking to campus with the other day. But is how do we carry your school textbooks or your laptop and a water bottle? Well, let's make a bag for that. So it's kind of just morphed into like, well, what is the customer carrying, and can Thread slide in there and do it in a good way?
And have you guys noticed that brand identity has shifted as you've been starting to open up into more products and expanding, or has it stayed pretty consistent?
I would say yes and no. I think people still know us for the wallets and accessories. Especially, I mean, I know a lot of people who even are like, oh, I've had a Thread lanyard for a long time. But on the flip side is, a lot of my friends or people that I interact with, I don't know the day, I couldn't give you like a day and time, but a lot of people have transitioned to saying, oh, hey, how's Thread? Or what's the latest at Thread, not Thread wallets. So I think people are shifting a little bit, but then you still get the people, it's like, we make jokes about it, but like, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people, especially I feel like older people, which is fine, but like they just haven't heard of it. And so I'll be like, oh yeah, I work for Thread Wallets. And they'll be like, oh, Fred Wallace, who's that? Or like and I'm not joking, like we've joked about making a mascot, Fred Wallace, like would be the name of our mascot, because people literally will say that. Or if you're in a setting where it's loud and you say, oh yeah, I work for Threadwallets, they'll be like, oh yeah, Fred Wallace, or
Great guy. Yeah.
yeah, great guy. Or Fred, what does they do? Or a lot of people have actually too, when I've said Thread, or if you throw in the wallets, they'll be like, so is that like a crypto startup, like a digital wallet?
That's the next product offering.
Yeah,
That's
and
what you
it's
tell
like,
them.
oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think there is, candidly, there can be some confusion, but I think most people have gotten it, and it's been somewhat of a natural just transition from Thread wallets to Thread.
That's amazing. As we close out today's episode, I always like ending the Get Over Yourself podcast. The reason I coined that term, Get Over Yourself, is I want to have and help business leaders, not just strive for their own personal wealth and, making a cool company, but how are they giving back to their customers? How are they giving back to their community and using the talents that God has given them as, as an entrepreneur, as somebody, as a leader at a company? How can they give that back to other people? And I want to ask that same question to you, but with also a preface. Thread is amazing. You've already shared a couple stories where you'll go and pay for somebody's lunch or go talk with them out in public when you see them using your product. There's a couple other Thread stories of just giving back on, more the mental health side and a few other aspects. If you can kind of coin that phrase, get over yourself, into the Thread ecosystem and story, how would you explain that?
Yeah, well, I think there's the brand side of things, of like how we can do that, is like one that we try to be really good at and we can always do better, but is giving back, whether it's time, money, or product. I think especially on the product side, Mackenzie, our co-founder, is really good at, and loves, and I love it too, but of giving product out to charities and schools and people who can use the product. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've given stuff, that I've donated stuff to charity events where it's like, hey, we want the lanyard to be used for the guest passes or something, or silent auction items, or to PTAs. I think that's important. On the personal side is, I actually gave a speech at BYU a few weeks ago all about this. Similar of Get Over Yourself is, I just entitled it Give As You Go. And I think a lot of times we as business leaders, or whatever, where we're at in life, it's easy to think, I'll give back when I have more time, money, or
That's always the
experience.
cliche, right?
And it's like, if you do have a lot more money, that's not going to magically change you. You've got to have that ingrained in who you are now. And so to me, it's really important, of like, to anyone, is that'd be the advice I would give, is you always have something to give. So even if someone's like in college, they're like, well, I'm a poor college student. Well, yeah, but there's someone a grade younger than you who's interested in getting into the program that you're at. So it's like, help them, give back. Or maybe it's someone in your church community, or a roommate who's sad or frustrated, is spending time there. Like, you can always give back. And so as a business leader, is I always try, like, if people reach out and are like, hey, can I pick your brain about Thread, or I'm thinking I want to start my own business, like, could I get some advice from you? I genuinely try to make time for that. And I think that's really important.
I agree. I think too often people look straight to the financial aspect and go, okay, how can I, once you make it at a certain stage, now I can go and give back. And I agree. Obviously, you want to have those kind of mindsets and always be willing to give, even if you have nothing. But it's just always a good reminder to say, like, it doesn't always have to be the financial side of things. You can give back with your time and talents in plenty of other ways. So,
absolutely.
Ryan, as we close out, any other final words of wisdom for anyone out there who may be interested in starting their own business?
The only thing that comes to mind that I share quite a bit is, I think a lot of times people think like, oh, it's super risky for me to start my own thing. And I'm like, I always tell people, I'm like, okay, well, the alternative is what? Like, go work for a big corporation. You're one corporate restructuring away from losing your job there. Because I can't tell you how many people I know, or even family, who that's affected, where they say they went the safe corporate route, but then were laid off because they were making too much money, or doing something so they could restructure, hire a young person, whatever. And it's like, I don't think it's as safe as you think. So it's like, starting a business, if you want to do it, like, do it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, guys. As always, in the episode description, I'll be including Ryan's social media. So if you want to reach out on LinkedIn or anything like that, also include the Threadwallet website. If you guys haven't gone through and actually seen that, I highly encourage you to go order some product. They are a great company, great causes they give back to. So Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. And guys, we'll see you on next episode.
Thanks for the invite.